Horrifying story. She played all night on craze gripping nation's kids. It is a real problem, actually, isn't it? That young kids as young as 9, I've got kids around that age, keeping them off the screen is a big problem. Staying up all night with a game addiction, that is bad. But bad spelling on the front page of a national newspaper. Maybe I'm wrong. Has the world moved on? Would you spell Fortnite N-I-T-E? I would spell it N-I-G-H-T. It's part of the story, is it? Have I missed the point? Is that the game? It's called Fortnite. Anyway, I don't know. We'll get to the bottom of it before the end of the programme. Plenty of time to sort that out. Meanwhile, it is Saturday, the 9th of June 2018. We got to see Parliament for the first time on TV, live, on this day in 1975. There had been microphones in there since the 1950s. But there was this concern, I think at the time, that if they televised Parliament, it might just be that a little bit too exciting for us. You know what I mean? Seeing all those politicians debating, that might be just too much for our minds and our hearts to be able to cope with. Or was it perhaps that they were actually worried that we would see them all in Parliament and possibly one or two of them nodding off, which we do see from time to time. It's not good to see your paid representatives representing democracy and they're actually dozing off after a rather good lunch and a nice bottle of wine. Anyway, it was this day back in 1975. It was only for a trial for 1 month. Tony Benn, God bless him, was actually the first minister to face a question on air. Then they stopped it for a while. It came back a few years later. I actually remember all of that when I was only a young lad, but I remember when they started televising Parliament. It must have thrown some kids' TV shows off air or something, and maybe that's why I remember it. But I am a big fan today. Watching Today in Parliament, I'm just fascinated to see how it all ends. This little drama that we see. It is a bit like a soap opera, isn't it? You know, it's marvellous. We've got this woman now playing the Prime Minister. She is a strange choice, I must admit, but I love the way in this soap opera called Parliament we've now got a few comedic characters in there, like Boris and Michael Gove, obviously just written into the plot just for sheer entertainment value, not actually any depth or substance to the story, but they're really just for a laugh. Whoever is the script editor for this TV show, doing a great job. The best soap opera running, I reckon, introducing this Brexit thing as well. An absolute inspiration to the storyline. That will just run and run, won't it? There we are. Televising of Parliament. George Stephenson was born today in 1781. The man who invented the rocket, of course, the world's first steam locomotive that ran from Stockton to Darlington in the northeast of England. In 1825 was when the Stockton and Darlington Railway opened. And it was built with a rail gauge of, this is really one for the train spotters. Train spotters will be going at last, a radio station just for us. The rail gauge was 4 foot 8.5 inches, which is the standard gauge still used today on most of the world's railways. It started way back then in 1825 with the Stockton and Darlington Railway. The train reached a top speed of 24 miles per hour, which is pretty much the same speed as a lot of commuter trains into London these days, isn't it? He then went on, George Stephenson, and built, after the Stockton and Darlington Railway, he built the Liverpool and Manchester Railway 5 years later. So there we are. There was no stopping him. And really, it was the precursor to the Industrial Revolution because we didn't need to ship goods on barges in canals. We could take them by train. So there we are. I wonder what his opinion was on trains without guards. I wonder if he'd have a view on that. Back in 2002, the BBC had a show called 100 Greatest Britons, and they asked people to vote on who they thought were the greatest Britons. George Stephenson came in at number 65. Do you want to know who came first? The greatest Briton of all time, according to this. I love it because I can sort of do a moderately acceptable impression of him. It was Winston Churchill who won. Every week I'm going to have an opportunity to do Winston Churchill. I still want to see The Darkest Hour. I might get it on DVD. It's getting worse week after week. I might leave it. Second place was Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who, of course, designed the Great Western Railway, so it's his fault. Third, Diana, Princess of Wales. Really? The third most influential Briton. I mean, obviously, very kind-hearted, very beautiful lady. but the third most significant British person of all time, particularly when fourth, is Charles Darwin, who developed the theory of evolution. I think that's perhaps a little bit more deserving than Princess Diana, who looked good on the cover of magazines. And then we've got William Shakespeare, Sir Isaac Newton, for whom, without it, we wouldn't have gravity. That would make life very... If we didn't have gravity, we'd be floating around all over the place if it wasn't for Sir Isaac Newton. But he's still 3 places behind Diana, Princess of Wales. Where is the sense in that? Elizabeth I, who defeated the Spanish Armada, 5 places below Diana. John Lennon, 8th. Horatio Nelson, who obviously stopped the invasion by Napoleon. We'd all be speaking French by now, if it wasn't for... Well, I don't think we would they? I think he would give up. You know, if the French invaded, they'd try and teach us French. They'd realise that we're just incapable of learning foreign languages, and they probably would have gone back home. And then 10th place, Oliver Cromwell. Top Blake, obviously, apart from the genocide in Ireland. I don't know how we got onto that. We got onto that because George Stevenson came into that list at number 65, and it's his birthday today. He was born in 1781. And today, Israel captured the Golan Heights from Syria. But obviously, we're not allowed to talk about that because they're the good guys. Can't say anything against them. Today, in 1928, Charles Kingsford Smith completes the world's first trans-Pacific flight. The Australian aviator, with a 4-man crew, left from Oakland in California on the morning of May the 31st, and 9 days later, which is today, after several stops, they landed safely in Brisbane, where they waited weeks for a connecting flight to Sydney. And Sydney Airport is called Charles Kingsford Smith to this day because of him, that famous Australian aviator. Johnny Depp is having his birthday today as well. Have you seen the pictures of Johnny Depp? He does not look well. He's 55 today. He's looking about 85. I don't know what's going on with Johnny Depp. He's thin, he's gaunt. Has his girlfriend left him? Is he single again now? Is he alone with Pistol and Boo? He needs to eat Pistol and Boo, by the looks. He needs to get some nutrition in him anyway. Les Paul, not to be confused with RuPaul. He was born today in 1915. He's the man who co-designed the Gibson guitar. Charles Dickens, you are now so informed about what happened on this day in history. Charles Dickens died today in 1870. I think he died from exhaustion after attempting a particularly long sentence. Think about Charles Dickens. Lots of his books, apparently one sentence lasts a whole paragraph, sometimes a whole page. And Nero, the Roman emperor, died on this day in the year 68. Just 68. The year 68. He died. That's what happens, isn't it, when you fiddle too much? For any teenagers listening, let that be a lesson. It's 11 after 11. This is Love Sport.